What is up, everyone, and welcome to another Nintendo Breakdown video. In today's video, we are going to be analyzing and going over the things that you missed in the newly released Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. Before we start today's video, make sure to subscribe and like down below. We're really close to 400 subscribers, and now that E3 is over, I'm going to be making a lot more content about everything that happened over the course of E3. So make sure to subscribe if you're going to be here for it. But without any further ado, let's get right into the video. So the first scene that we see is similar to the scenes that we saw in the very first Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 trailer about a year ago, where you see some of Dark Ganon, or some of what many people theorize to be a defeated Ganon or a different form of Ganon, under the castle, and you see Zelda and Link kind of exploring it, and they're getting attacked by Malice. The next instant, you see Zelda falling down into what seems to be some sort of pit, which is probably, I'm going to go ahead and say, under the castle, because later in the trailer we will see that the castle rises up, which confirms a major theory that a lot of people had when the first trailer came out, that there is something, or that Ganon was simply resting under the castle where you had your final battle with him in the first Zelda Breath of the Wild game. The next thing that we see is actually our first shot of Link in the trailer. We see him falling down from the sky, similar to how he was falling in Skyward Sword, but we actually get a lot of details from this little picture because we see that Link has a new haircut. As you can see here, his hair is no longer long and wavy, it's more cut and in a bob cut almost, and he's wearing what looks to be a traditional Greek or Athenian outfit, similar to how the rest of the trailer kind of shows a lot of ancient architecture, so you can go ahead and tell that there is already going to be a theme in the game. We see Link with his paraglider, which does look a little bit different than it did in the other game. You see that he has his haircut, he's wearing some of her similar garments, but obviously they do look a little bit different. As you can see, he has a shield and bow on his back. The next shot that we see is Link running through a field, and I have to say this is probably the best shot of the entire trailer. You can go ahead and see that he, like I said earlier, there is some architecture that you can already tell. You have these floating islands, which is really interesting because that means that we could go into more depth with actually exploring or having platforms in the sky, which is something that Breath of the Wild didn't have. You were mostly grounded most of the game, and when you were flying, you were usually flying down. The next shot that we see is actually what looks to be a new either enemy or some type of robot thing. As we can see, we didn't really have many friendly things in Breath of the Wild, so I'm assuming that this is a new type of enemy that you're going to have to face. It looks like something like maybe a castle guardian or a ruin guardian. As you can see, it's around the landscape that you see right here, and as we go further into the trailer, you see the return of bokoblins, but as you can see, there's a little bit of difference to what the bokoblins look like. There is a small horn on their head, which goes to show that there is a bit of change, and you can see that their base is actually situated on top of a talus. So you might end up fighting a talus with bokoblins on top, and obviously as you get further into the game, there's probably going to be harder bosses like this. So I'd assume they have leveled up a lot of the mini bosses that you faced in the first game, especially the talus, as you can see here. The next shot shows Link, which shows an arm or some type of device. I'm assuming this is going to be how Link gets his new power-up, similar to the Sheikah Slate in Breath of the Wild, because in the next shot you see Link using what looks to be sort of like magnesis, but combined with some type of stasis ability, because as you can see, Link stops time, or stops the flow of the objects, and can control the direction in which it goes after he releases it, similar to stasis, but he doesn't need to go up and actually hit it, which is a really cool power-up idea. We also see a new type of weapon, it looks like, in the next shot, with Link using some sort of flamethrower against another enemy that we have not seen before. The next shot is probably the most interesting power-up, I would say, out of any of them, because it shows a little droplet of water where you can actually, it looks like something that either pulls you up or you can jump it, similar to Revali's Gale, and you can actually go through objects. I'm not sure if this is going to be all objects in the game, or if it was just certain objects in the game that you can go through, like when you hit a certain marker, it jumps you higher, sort of like a grapple hook. But as you can see, this is what's going to be used to kind of traverse these cloud-like islands in the sky. And as you can see, there's ginormous mountains. There's lots more of these islands that are just floating around, and I'm pretty sure that this game is going to be a lot bigger, not necessarily the map, but the scope of the game is going to be a lot bigger than the first game was, obviously, since you can see that there is a lot more room for Nintendo and the developers to actually improve on sky modes or sky levels. The next shot that we see is actually kind of getting back to what I was talking about earlier, talking about the first shot of the trailer, where you can see Hyrule Castle. As you can see, Hyrule Castle is crumbling, and then the scene that I was talking about earlier, where you see that the castle actually rises up, and you can see probably Malice, which I'm assuming is Malice, dripping off the bottom of the castle, which is pretty much going to confirm the theory that Ganon was resting under the castle, and that's where we saw Link and Zelda journeying in the beginning, and where we saw Zelda fall in, and I'm guessing the hole that she fell in is going to be under the castle. So similarly to the first game, I'm assuming that the goal of the game is going to be to get under the castle, and maybe that's where the final boss is, or maybe it could be a halfway point. I think that'd be very interesting. The rest of the trailer isn't really anything special, but there is a part I do want to talk about right before you can actually hear that the music reverses right as you see the castle falling apart. And if you speed up this music in reverse of the reverse, it's actually the main song of Breath of the Wild, or the main theme of Breath of the Wild. So that's just an interesting tidbit that you may have missed during the trailer, but obviously at the end we see the castle rising, similar to the shot in the first Breath of the Wild where we saw Ganon coming out of the castle. Now it looks like Ganon is coming from under the castle. So finally, obviously we get our 2022 release date, which I would assume it's not going to be the beginning of 2022. It's probably going to be looking more like the winter of 2022 or the holiday season of 2022. So we still have a bit longer to wait, but I would not wait on a trailer. I would say the next trailer would probably come next year. I doubt we're going to get any more information on the game, and if we do, it'll probably just be a short little excerpt by the developer to make sure that we know what's going on, how game progress is steadily making, because based on we didn't see any gameplay, or we did see gameplay, not actually like with we don't know the UI yet. It could be similar, it could be very different than the first Breath of the Wild, but obviously you could see that many of the same mechanics exist. Obviously we saw paragliding at the very beginning. The running animation looks very similar. Obviously in this shot that you saw earlier with the bokoblins and the talus, we see that you could still observe some of the same places that you saw in the first game. Obviously this is a common path, as you can see the mountains behind, so you know that this is heading towards the castle, so you can still observe and go to many of the same places of the first game, which raises the question, will the map be the same as the first game, or will it be drastically different? As you can see in this photo here, Link seems to have his old haircut. He doesn't have the new bushy hair that he has in the other shots of the trailer, and you can see that he is using the traditional pot lid as the shield and many of the same outfits that you saw in the first game. So I'm assuming that the game is going to be split into two parts. One part which is going to be exploring the same map as last time, but it is going to be changed depending on where you start in the Great Plateau or not. I'm assuming it's going to be changed. The enemies are going to be different, as you can see with the bokoblins and the talus. I'm assuming you're going to explore this area, and whatever they may do, whether they may do shrines or some other quest, you're going to have to make your way to the bottom of the castle. Then once you get to the bottom of the castle, something's going to happen with you and Zelda, and you're going to end up somehow ending up in these sky levels, which I think is going to be the second part of the game, which is where you're going to find all of these new power-ups. As you can see, I'm assuming that they're going to largely increase the cache of weapons, since we saw this flame weapon that Link uses in part of the trailer, and they only showed it a very short part of the trailer, so that makes me think that they're going to be using a lot more weapons in this game. I'm interested to see how they handle weapon durability, right? They haven't shown us any specifics about the game have not been released yet, and we are only left to speculate until we get a next trailer. I'm assuming that they won't reveal a lot of things until their next trailer, so their next trailer will be either a small excerpt or a big excerpt where they go over lots of stuff like the UI, maybe show some real gameplay, or they may be waiting for something else to release it. But with that all out of the way, I want to know your guys' thoughts on Breath of the Wild 2. I know obviously it was the big reveal of E3, or I would say it's Nintendo's big reveal at least, and we know that this was built up for a very, very long time. So as you can see with the number of differences, what do you guys think is your favorite new aspect of this game? Is it the graphics? Is it Link's new design? Is it the new weapons or the new power-ups, the new aesthetic? Or do you guys think the story will be better than the first game? Do you think it will be, obviously it's a continuation of the story. Do you think we'll ever get to play Zelda? I want you guys to write all what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like down below. I will be making a lot more of these in the coming days. But with that all out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.